So welcome to Everything Marketplaces, where we talk with marketplace founders and leaders from some of today's top marketplaces. So this is episode 15, and I'm excited to welcome on Bryan Clayton, who is currently the CEO and co-founder of GreenPal. So if you're not familiar, GreenPal is a marketplace for lawn care, and it has a $20 million annual run rate, is completely bootstrapped. So Bryan, you have an incredible story with GreenPal, and it's definitely not the typical Silicon Valley one. So maybe before we jump into talking about how you got started with GreenPal, you can share a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, right on. So thanks for having me on. Lifelong entrepreneur. When I was 16 years old, my dad came into my bedroom and on a hot summer day and interrupted me playing Super Mario Kart and said, "Hey, listen, we got a job to do. We're going to go mow the neighbor's yard." And he made me go cut the neighbor's grass. He and I did it together. We got paid $20. We split it. And ever since then, I've been hooked on entrepreneurship. I've never had a job, never worked for anybody. I just started mowing yards in high school. And by the end of that summer, I think I had like 15 people that I was mowing grass for in the neighborhood, and just slowly grew that business over time, all the way through high school, all the way through college. By the time I was 22, 23 years old, graduating college, I had like 50 employees. Grew that business over a 15-year period of time to over 150 people, over $10 million a year in revenue, and sold that business to the largest national landscaping company in the United States. And after that, I kind of retired, took some time off. Quite frankly, got bored, realized that for me, my joy and my personal fulfillment comes from owning and operating and growing businesses. And so I started GreenPal, recruited two co-founders, and we just went to work on it, creating the marketplace for lawn mowing services. Here we are 7 years later. We've grown GreenPal from zero revenue to $20 million a year in revenue. Over 200,000 active users on a weekly basis use the app and website to get their lawn cut. So it's been a hell of a journey, going from a blue collar, typical type of business owner to a tech entrepreneur, and building a marketplace and bootstrapping it every step of the way has been tough. But I'm glad I did it because it's been a lot of fun and I've learned a lot.
Yeah, so that's quite the story. So maybe what was it like after you sold your first business that was primarily service driven to where you thought, hey, I need to start GreenPal as a marketplace and kind of take that step?
Yeah, so spending 15 years starting a landscaping company from just myself and a push mower to over 100 people, hundreds of 100 vehicles going out every day, very asset driven. Bootstrapping that business and growing it from scratch, I saw a lot of the inefficiencies of how hard it is as a business owner in the landscaping business to operate your business, how hard it is to get connected with good fit clientele. And then on the flip side, I saw for homeowners, it's just really hard to find a good lawn cutting service. You wouldn't think it is, but it actually is. Running that company, we would get 30, 40 phone calls a day to my front office, people just looking for a basic lawn mowing service. My company had grown to the size to where we weren't doing residential lawn mowing anymore, but we would try to refer these people to smaller operators that were. And in effect, we became a referral network for people that were needing basic yard mowing services and referring them to smaller providers that they didn't know about, they couldn't reach. And so I saw that. I just knew that was a problem. It needed to be solved. And I saw at the time what Uber and Lyft were doing for ride sharing, what Airbnb was doing for accommodations. And so it was a very clear idea for me that technology and a technology-driven marketplace could solve the problem of it's just damn hard to find a good lawn mowing service to come out on the day you want them. And then also as a smaller lawn mowing service operator, it's hard to get started. It's hard to know what tools you should be using. It's hard to market your business. And so the idea 7 years ago, just getting started now today, really is the same idea that I had back then. It's just making this one simple chore so much easier than it is in analog, and literally making the Uber for lawn mowing. Now, what I under-indexed on was how difficult it was going to be to reinvent myself as a typical blue collar, traditional type of business owner to a straight up tech startup. I didn't understand how hard that was going to be. Our first version, we paid a development agency in Nashville something like $150,000 to build the first version. We literally thought that we were just going to build that first version, market it, and then we were going to be off to the races. And man, it was nothing could be further from the truth. We launched this thing, and it was a total piece of junk. It barely worked. It was hard to use. And I think at the end of our first year, we had something like 20 users, and half of them were my friends and family. It was a total disaster. Yeah. And we learned that, okay, if we're going to be a tech startup, we're going to have to self-execute all these things. And so my co-founders and I had to start learning how to build software, how to design software, how to build a marketplace, how to architect one, and just really started just getting in the trenches, grinding on building this thing, talking to every user that we could, and funneling all of that feedback into how we were crafting the product on both sides of the transaction. It was just a lot of trial and error. It took us 3 years of just gutting it out in Nashville, Tennessee, to where we actually got to a product that worked right, and to where we actually got to a recipe that we could scale out city by city. And we didn't launch our second city until 4 years into the marketplace. And so that is a lesson that, you have to learn the hard way, I think. If you're going to bootstrap a marketplace, you need to be ready for a long, hard fight. Getting that first 100,000 in revenue, getting that first $1 million in revenue is just a bitch. And it was one that we had to learn the hard way, and I'm glad we did, because now here we are 7 years later. We're doing $20 million a year in revenue. We're completely debt free. We have no outside investors, and we're pumping all the money back into the platform to build it and grow it. It feels good. I'm glad we did it this way. But the first few years were excruciating.
Yeah, that's quite the journey. And I think most of us that are bootstrapping marketplaces can relate. So if we maybe take a step back, and we're, in the early days where it sounds like you had the existing kind of demand, and you just saw that there was like an overwhelming need for the services, right? And then you kind of hired the dev shop to kind of build out your first product. What was it like on your guys' end with, in the early days saying, hey, we invested this initial amount in building out a platform, and, it's quite challenging. Like, what was that journey like, building up that first amount of revenue, being bootstrapped and kind of making that investment?
Absolute hell. We spent 6 months with this dev shop building this thing, and no users. And, we did the same thing that most every naive entrepreneur does, to build it and they will come. Yeah. And we didn't have any kind of growth strategy baked into our go-to-market strategy. And we had to figure out a way to get people to use this damn thing. Taking a page out of my former playbook, running my last company, we passed out door hangers. My two co-founders and I got printed out something like 100,000 door hangers. And we went all over Nashville, Tennessee, passing these goddamn things out. And I can still, to this day, hang one of these with my eyes closed, just because I've done so many of them. And so here we are, I just sold my $10 million landscaping business. I had retired, and now I'm hanging out door hangers for lawn mowing that I wouldn't have even done with my last company. It was very humbling. Yeah. But it taught us a lot. We learned a lot doing that. Just the sheer hustle of doing that for several months was humbling. But we got the first couple hundred users we needed to use our first version of the product, and then we could just sit down with them, talk to them, try to figure out, okay, what did you like about it? What problem did it solve? What problem did you think it was going to solve? Where did we come up short? And we learned a lot. We learned a lot in that first year doing that. We learned the essence of our value proposition for demand side. We learned that when we launched, we thought that our value proposition was the cheapest way to get your grass cut, hands down, the cheapest way to get your lawn mowing. And that really wasn't as very important to the homeowners, to the demand side. What they actually wanted was a fast way, a reliable way, because when they got to our product, they had already exhausted every other option to find somebody to come mow the yard. They had already left 20 voicemails. They had already asked for referrals at church. They had already posted on Facebook. And now they tried this thing out of sheer desperation. They needed somebody to show up on time and actually do a good job. And that's the problem we were solving. And we didn't know that. Our assumption was we were trying to market the cheapest solution to this problem, when in fact, the thrust of our value proposition is more that it's the quickest, fastest, most reliable way to get somebody at your house to mow your grass. And it still is now to this day. And so that was something that we learned just through sheer hustle of trying to manufacture the momentum, essentially, going from cold start to getting the first few hundred users into the product, and actually sitting down with them at a coffee shop or at their kitchen counter and talking to them and trying to figure out, okay, how do we do more of what you wanted and less of what you didn't like? And we just kept repeating that over and over and over again. And still to this day, that's our ethos for how we do product development and how we understand where we need to focus all of our efforts and resources. So the early days were extremely hard. I got bit by a dog 2 or 3 times handing these things out. And we came to realize that 10 users per dog bite was not a scalable user acquisition strategy. And so we had to figure out, okay, we're going to have to bake growth into this product somehow. And we were studying, still to this day, all of the best growth methodology and product-driven growth that we could. And we began to okay, we got to focus a good amount of our resources on building growth into the product, and how do we leverage the product to grow the product, because we're not taking on capital. We can't afford paid channels. We can't afford to spend a bunch of money on paid growth. And so we had to figure out ways to architect the marketplace so it would grow itself. And it took 4 years to figure that out. And just gutting out that time, just trying to hustle up as many users as we could and keep them was just dues we had to pay as table stakes.
That's super interesting, and definitely can see the passing out the door hangers not scalable. So maybe what were some of those, what were some of the tactics that you guys found early on, or maybe even kind of product features that really allowed you to kind of scale from that initial traction that you guys had?
Yeah, so we began to understand, okay, where are our users hanging out? In any marketplace, of course, you've got both sides of the transaction that you have to recruit to the platform. And in most cases, demand side is the harder of the two. Once you have demand, supply will usually come. And so the first early adopting vendors that use our platform, we were just hustling them up through Craigslist, through word of mouth. Anybody that was advertising on Craigslist, we would reach out to and pitch them over the phone. And that was a pretty easy pitch, because it's free to sign up for our platform. You only pay a transaction fee to use it. And so we were able to hustle that side up. The hard part is the demand side. And that usually is for any marketplace. It certainly is for ours. We had to look at, okay, well, where can we get these folks to try the product? And where can we be when they need us? And for us, it's local search was the best thing for us to focus on, and still is to this day. If you type in lawn care near me, or lawn care Charlotte, North Carolina, or lawn care Nashville, Tennessee, lawn care Tampa, Florida, lawn maintenance, Tulsa, Oklahoma, for these key phrases, our platform ranks. And so for us, SEO was a bet that we made early on to try to get organic traffic into our platform for homeowners that need the services that our platform offers. And SEO is kind of one of those things where you have to bet the company on it, and we did. It's just such a labor-intensive, long, hard slog, kind of like a marketplace itself. And it takes years to get any kind of momentum behind it. But we knew that we weren't going to raise money. We knew we didn't want to raise money. And so we figured, okay, let's play the long game, and let's figure out how we can compete in search. And the way we did that was we hand cranked it. We still to this day hand crank it. And every vendor that we get on our platform, we interview them. We talk to them. We find out what makes their business unique, why they're in the business, what services they offer, what are some local nuances around what high school they went to, what neighborhoods they serve, and we collect all of this unique information about that business and handcraft a bio about that company. So this is all local content that we create for every one of our service providers, and then we funnel that into content that we surface to Google. So let's say you're searching for lawn mowing services, Hartford, Connecticut. We have the 10 best lawn mowing services in Hartford, Connecticut, and we've written about them, and we've curated this information, and we've put it into a nice package landing page for users to interact with and to onboard onto the platform. Google recognizes that this content as unique, as the best resource for lawn mowing in Hartford, Connecticut, and so do users. And so Google takes all of this, rewards it, and puts it up further on the search results. That's how we acquire about half of our homeowners that use the platform. And to this day, it's our biggest channel. And so a lot of times when you're building a marketplace, especially a bootstrapped one, you're going to need to like bet the farm on one channel. And in my experience, you're going to need to just try to do everything you can to unlock that one channel. Rarely in a bootstrap startup are you going to have 3, 4, 5 channels. It's because it's hard to compete and be good at 5 things at once. And so for us, local search is the thing that we bet on to acquire the demand side for our platform.
Nice. And then I think I kind of cheated, and I saw that you guys created a guide recently.
Yeah.
To help with SEO, or?
So for demand for supply side, we have the best book for how to start a lawn mowing business. I wrote it, and I'm not saying I'm the end all like guru on this, but I did build an actual lawn mowing business from 0 to 10 million in revenue and sold it. And less than like 0.0001% of people in lawn mowing businesses actually get that done. So I wrote this book on how to start a lawn mowing service, and we spent like 80 grand on the design and execution and research on this book. We built and launched that, and that is the honey for how we attract supply side on the platform. And so for us, supply side's unlocked. We don't even worry about that. We have more than enough lawn mowing services in all 50 states in the United States that want to use our platform. So now we just focus on the demand side and getting as many homeowners onto the platform as we can for the vendors that use it to operate their business and make material income doing it. It's our goal for any lawn mowing company or anybody getting started in lawn mowing service to plug into our platform and to make $100 grand in their first year. If they're willing to work hard enough. We take care of everything. All they need to do is just show up when they're supposed to show up and do a good job and upload the picture. That's literally all they have to do.
Nice.
Everything from getting them all of the leads that they could ever want, all the work that they could ever want, getting them scheduled, getting them paid, getting all of the routing done for them. It's all handled with our technology, where all they have to do is just hustle, do a good job, communicate with their clients, and they can grow from 5 customers to 50 customers in their first year just by bolting onto the GreenPal platform.
Nice. So I find that super interesting in that not only kind of creating the guide to focus with helping some of the suppliers potentially not only get started, but then also grow their businesses using your platform, how you're kind of seeing businesses, truly grow their own revenue, which of course kind of, benefits you guys as a marketplace. Are you kind of, what stage are you focusing on? I mean, I know now you're saying demand side, but with like suppliers, are you seeing like the kind of, people getting started using our platform and kind of growing their business through it? Or are you like, what's the kind of breakdown on supply?
Yeah, so there's over 10,000 lawn mowing services that use the platform to operate and grow their business. For us, if you had to like put that out on a pie graph, over 70% of them are what we call one-man bands. Peter in a pickup, Chuck in a truck. It's just one person riding around and getting it. And like, it's our job to like make that guy or gal's life as easy as possible. And so that type of person that is working as a teacher working as an EMS first responder, working as a fireman, a police officer, or whatever, the lawn mowing business is the perfect side hustle to complement that. And so we see a lot of that. People that mow yards 3 or 4 days a week as a side hustle, and they're making bank. Like they're making like $60-$70 an hour just hustling mowing yards on our platform. And yeah, they own, probably $5,000 in equipment as a way to get, as an investment to get started. But it's the perfect side hustle job. And then those folks graduating and doing and leaving their job to go full-time mowing yards on our platform is like one of our like yardsticks for success. So that's our sweet spot for suppliers. Your company that is doing like $1 million in revenue, that already has 3 or 4 crews, we do have about 10% of our users that fit that makeup. But the thing is, those operators have their existing systems, albeit they're ancient. Like a lot of times they're just spreadsheets and like handwritten calendars and stuff like that. They're more stodgy to adapt new processes and new technologies. So they're not really a good fit for our platform. Our platform is a good fit for the person just getting started, the smaller provider, because honestly, that's a better fit for the homeowner. Because you can jump onto GreenPal and hire this small, like boutique operator who's actually the person who's going to be trimming your grass, and you can hire them like easier than any of the more established companies. You can hire them by pushing a button, and that's the value proposition for the homeowner, is to have access to all these smaller operators who have no exposure into the marketplace, have no marketing. You'd have no other way to find or know who they are. It's very, very fragmented, but we consolidate that all into one nice experience for homeowners, is to be able to hire these folks. That's like the sweet spot for both sides of the transaction that makes the value proposition for GreenPal very compelling for consumers and very compelling for providers.
Nice. Cool. So maybe if we can jump into talking about how you guys expanded, outside of Nashville.
Yeah, it sucked. It was hard. The first 3 years was just in Nashville, trying to figure out how the hell we make this thing consistent, reliable, and make it to where when a homeowner pushes a button, the guy or gal actually shows up. And 4th year, we launched our second market. This is huge, Tampa, Florida. And we had to figure out, okay, how can we make something that's working in Nashville? At that time, we might have had 1,000 users just in Nashville. And we launched Tampa, Florida, because we had like one of our friends like lived there. And like that was the only reason we launched it, was because we could go down there and he knew all the neighborhoods. He could just drive us around and he could show us like the lay of the land. And that's why we picked Tampa. Yeah. And so I remember going down there and he's showing us around and he's driving us around. I was like, yeah, this is a nice neighborhood. This is a nice neighborhood. And he's like, and then I started to realize all he's doing is driving us to the neighborhoods of like former girlfriends that he had in high school and college. That's literally all he's doing. I'm like, dude, yeah. I'll never forget this. Like, what the hell are we doing? This is our second market, and this idiot friend of ours is like just driving us around Tampa, Florida. And like, this is our strategy. But I mean, year 4, that's how we did it. And so we said, okay, we'll just do Tampa, and it seems okay. And I know the inside of every coffee shop inside of the Tampa Bay area, because I went down there for about 3 weeks and just interviewed and talked to hundreds of lawn mowing services to onboard them onto the platform, because we knew that if we didn't get that right, that it was game over, because we had to figure out a way to take this thing on the road. And we learned so much launching that product in another city. We learned that the market wasn't Tampa. The market was Sefner, Riverview, Brandon, St. Petersburg, Gulf City, Oldsmar. These are all little cities around Tampa that I personally know because I wrote the content for the landing pages for these towns. And so like, we learned that to build a city, to build a market, it's not the key like head thing that you think it is. It's all of the little towns and suburbs that are around that metro that make up the market. And we learned that the hard way, because it took us 2 years to figure it out. And so it's like, because the thing you don't realize is, like, for lawn mowing, you hire somebody, they have to like be 5 or 10 miles from you to make it profitable for them. It's so hyper local. Like, they have to be mowing in your zip code, or else it's not worth it for them. Like, you want them to come mow your grass for $35. They have to be within a 5-minute drive. They can't sit in traffic for 20 minutes and make any money on your $35 grass cutting. They're just not. And so we learned that the hard way, and learned that every single city had to be built from the ground up at such a like molecular level. And so that was the go-to-market strategy. That was the rollout. And so that was the second year. That was the second market. Third market was Atlanta. That sucked too. And we just gutted that out. And then we figured out, okay, this is the recipe. This is like the 20 things that we have to do to roll out into a new town. And this is how we do it. And so now, we're in every major city in the United States, every state. And now we're focusing on your tier 2, tier 3 cities, like your Billings, Montana, or Greensboro, South Carolina. We're in every major market now. Now we're focusing on towns with less than 100,000 people. And so the rollout strategy for a locally based marketplace is very tough. It's very in the trenches. It's very hand-to-hand combat. It's something that has to be done from the ground up in every town and city. And we just learned that by doing it the hard way and the wrong way to figure out what was the way that worked for us.
Nice. That's super interesting. Just so we can kind of maybe get an idea of at what point you initially launched into Tampa, from like a scale and kind of like revenue stage for the company. At what point was that at?
Man, dude, it was less than $1 million a year in revenue. And it was just like, it was something we spent 3 years in Nashville, and we figured out, okay, we have to do this. We have to jump off we have to take the leap of faith, and we have to figure out how to put this in a new town. So at that point, we knew we had product market fit. We knew we were solving a problem. We knew it was a bitch to get demand side to use it, and because it's just hard to distribute any product. But we were holding on to the homeowners that were using it. Even though the product was terrible at that point, we were at least sticky, and we were at least like retaining these people, and we were at least making money. And so we knew, okay, we got to take a leap of faith. We got to go to Tampa. And we, our second year, our goal was like 100 transactions a week, and we didn't hit it. And then so we said, okay, we have to get to 500 transactions a week. Now we do like 20,000, but like we have to get to 500 transactions a week before we can go to our second market. We finished the third year with like 300, and we're like, well, let's just do it anyway. It was very much like a shoot from the hip, gut call. And a lot of times, when you're bootstrapping something and you're starting from scratch, a lot of it needs to be like that. I think you just need to keep moving. You need to keep trying stuff. You need to keep momentum. You need to keep pushing forward, because you can sit here and theorize and look at metrics and look at data and let that influence your decision making. But I think in the early days, to me, that's bullshit. Like you don't need to be like data driven until like you've reached product market fit and you have like material revenue running for your product. Otherwise, you just get petrified and you get like gridlocked, and you're just like analyzing. You're doing nothing. I've seen that happen so many times. Like I coach startups in Nashville. A lot of times, you see people that are just like they're just frozen by analysis, and they're not actually doing the what I call the RGS, the RCS, the real company shit. Mm-hmm. Like they're not talking to users. They're not literally passing out flyers if they have to get users. They're not doing like the hustle to manufacture the momentum. So for us, man, like that second market, it was just something like, okay, we think we have product market fit. We've got a few hundred users. We got like, in total revenue pumping through the platform. I think it was under $1 million, and we just did it, and it sucked. It was hard. I didn't like it. It was humbling, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So maybe, I mean, well, there's a lot like we could jump into here, but we're going to jump into questions a little bit because I know we have some from the group. But, you know, like, can you maybe just kind of share like a little bit more about, you know, today, like the stage you guys are at, the kind of team makeup and whatnot?
Yeah. So it's still the same founding team. We started with 4 co-founders in the early days, and we bought out one of our co-founders in year 3 or 4, and so now it's just 3 co-founders, me and 2 others, and we have a team of around 20 people that work inside the company, doing everything from design to content writing to development, and executing the product roadmap. And then as far as users, 200,000 people, homeowners use the platform to get their lawn mowing and landscape maintenance done. Over 10,000 small lawn mowing services use it to run their business. And this year we're at a $20 million run rate for revenue going through the platform. So we've done all that from zero and no outside capital.
Nice. That's quite impressive. So cool. So let's just jump into some questions if that's cool with you.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Rich, you want to come on?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Bryan. We're trying to bootstrap the hell out of our business as well through SEO. And one thing that's kind of like a sticking point for me is how quickly should we scale our team? So right now it's just me and my co-founder. In those early stages when you started to see some traction come through and it was becoming a little bit too much for yourself, did you invest like upfront for, you know, outsourcing things where you wouldn't actually be profitable as a result? Or did you say, we're going to do this profitably the whole way along?
Yeah, great question. So I think when you're starting a business, there's 2 different phases. There's on it and there's in it. And so when you first get started, a lot of your time is going to be spent in it. Maybe 90% of your time is in it, 10% of your time is on it. And so in it could be like writing the content for SEO, doing outreach for backlinks, looking at the analytics for your on-page stuff and tweaking and fixing those at a code level. That's all in it stuff. But you need to be thinking about, okay, how do I build a system to execute these things? And literally, like, it can be helpful to go through your business and your company and develop an org chart. And you can say, okay, president, vice president, COO, marketing, SEO, content creator, technical SEO, outreach for backlinking, QA, all this shit that goes into SEO. And it's literally going to be your name on every single one of these things. But at least you have the roles identified and you're wearing every single one of those hats. And then as time goes on and you get just a little bit of money coming through your platform, maybe you can peel off one of those. And you can say, okay, I'm spending 80 hours a week and like on the startup and 20, 30 hours of it are on SEO related tasks. And the thing that's really bogging me down is the outreach that we have to do for backlinks to our blog posts. I'm going to hire somebody to help me with that one thing. And I'm going to develop a recipe, a formula, a system that they can follow that I made because I'm doing it and I know how to do it. And I'm not delegating it from I'm delegating from a stewardship standpoint. Like, I'm the steward of it. I'm not delegating from abdication. It's like, oh, we suck at SEO, somebody handle that. No, it's like, this is our SEO engine and we're doing pretty good. But I think like a lever that I can pull is if somebody can like do 50 hours a week of outreach rather than the 5 that I'm doing, and I can pay them $500 a week to do it. And that will be like a leverage point for us to make our SEO even better and stronger. And it also free me up for higher leverage activities to where I can move just out of in it and more onto on it. Because everything I just said was like on it related stuff. You're developing a system, you're developing a process to delegate some of these things. And that's where you need to be spending as much of your time as you can getting out of in it and getting on it. and delegating more into like high leverage things. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thank you.
That's a good question too. So, hey, Bryan, I'm kind of curious, you know, from scaling your initial business, which was kind of service-based, and, you know, you grew to 150 employees. Was that like a hard challenge to kind of shift from, you know, scaling, understanding like scaling with technology and, you know, processes versus kind of headcount?
Yeah, absolutely. It was totally different world. So the good news is that when you're in a tech-driven business, there is a technological solution for almost every problem you face, which is great. It makes it so much easier to deal with the day-to-day bullshit. So it's like something goes wrong, you can ask. So just a little heuristic that I learned from the lean startup. You just ask why 5 times. Okay, why did this go wrong? And then literally you just go through and ask 5 times why. So for us, like an example in the early days would be like, homeowners pissed off because the lawn mowing service didn't show up on time. Well, why didn't they show up on time? Well, they forgot, they didn't know that it was on their schedule. Why didn't they know it was on their schedule? Because they don't check their email. Well, why don't they check their email? Well, because as it turns out, although email is very important to us, most of the world never checks their email. Well, shit. Okay. So now what do we do? Well, we got to text message them every time. Okay. Well, now we're actually texting them, but what happened? Well, they didn't get that text message. Well, because they use Cricket as their service provider, and Cricket doesn't receive SMS from our system. Okay. So the problem is actually there's this weird, like nuanced technical problem why this person didn't get the text message to show up on the day they were supposed to. So you never would have known that had you not gone through the exercise to ask like why 5 or 10 times to get to the root cause of why something didn't go the way you wanted or expected it to go. And going through that process over and over and over again for every single problem that the businesses face is great, because you can solve the problems from a technological solution. But getting to a point where you can execute technology at that level is extremely hard. You know, if you run a traditional business, let's say you operate a restaurant and you're a great restaurant tour, you know, but you have this idea to build the best OS for bakeries, dude, it's going to be really hard to learn how to build software if you know, your thing is baking muffins, you know. Like, let's say you have the best, most tasty, delicious blueberry muffin in your zip code, and you think you want to build software that's going to, a marketplace that's going to make operating a bakery a lot easier. It's going to take you 3 to 4 years to learn how to do that. And that's what it took me. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we see other tech startups, other marketplaces like crushing it, raising $50, $100, $200 million, or exiting for $500 million. And what you don't understand, or at least I didn't understand, is that a lot of times these teams are on like their 2nd or 3rd or 4th go. They've already crashed and burned like 3 or 4 times. They've already crashed a ton of capital into the ground. And they have taken all of those lessons and have started like on first base. Whereas you're going to spend 2 or 3 years in the dugout just figuring out how to play this game if you're going from like analog to digital. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a great point. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're always still learning too. So
absolutely.
Cool. So Juan, did you want to come on?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Bryan, for your sharing your business and your story. Appreciate that. As you started getting your first paying customers, how much of that did you put back into marketing and getting more customers? Is it?
Yeah. Great question. Thanks. Great question. So one of my favorite quotes is from Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's right-hand man. And he says, the first 100,000 is a bitch. Get the first 100,000 in revenue. It's going to be hard. Do whatever it is you have to do. And by that, I mean, like, personally, as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to like live and sustain yourself on the least amount of money as possible so you can invest every dime back in. For us, my 2 co-founders worked at Dell Computer for like the first 3 years. and GreenPal was our night and weekend hustle. Now I was like financially independent, and so I was retired. So I was working on it 100 hours a week, 7 days a week. But like I wasn't taking a salary, and my two co-founders, it was just like, hey, how much you need this week? Can you get by on a couple $100? Like it was that. It was like $10 a day food budget. It was like, what's the cheapest rent we can get? And that's how, like, for us, like Nashville, Tennessee is a great place for us to start a bootstrap startup, because for 5 years, 3 of us shared a 250 square foot office that was $400 a month. One thing, that little heuristic that we focused on was from Steve Blank, the Startup Owner's Manual, is this simple like formula of get, keep, grow. Okay, get is like SEO. How do we get people into this thing? Keep, how do we keep them? How do we like solve the problems with the product? And then grow is like, how do we leverage those people to get more people? And for us, every dime, like literally like 90% of the money that came into our front door went back into those activities.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryan.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Cool. Doc, did you want to come on?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Bryan, thanks so much for being here. And I think I heard you like a couple weeks ago on Two-Sided, that podcast. So it's
that was a fun one.
Here. And then you're in Tennessee. Where was it? In Nashville. Monell's is my third favorite place on earth to eat.
Hey, right on, dude. Hey, listen, man. Monell's is 1 block from my office.
Oh, I would be like 500 pounds. I love that place. I love it. Well, I was wondering, just when you were doing all of this, right now we're really new, and we're trying to figure out the best way, even with a website, of seeing how to display, either just trying to get more information, having them fill out a form, or try to show them all the offerings that we can do. Do you have any suggestions on how your website has changed, or how your interaction with people coming on your website has changed over time?
Yeah, great question. One thing when you're bootstrapped is that you have to make like the most out of all the traffic that you get. Like, let's say you get 1,000 people a month. I mean, dude, you got to like sell something to as big a percent of those 1,000 as you can. And for us, it was just always relentlessly focusing on one thing that an 8-year-old would understand. Push a button, hire a lawn mowing service. Well, I need my shrubs pruned, or I need mulch, or I need snow plowing, or I need a tree trimmer. Like all of these fragmented things, like for us, we've always focused on what is the one thing that we do better than anybody else in the world, and let's just focus everything we have into that. And then after we get like a user base, we might can cross sell into some other things that are interesting down the path. But when I was studying product design in the early days, there's this concept called the red route, and it relates to, in London, the buses in the city go down the street, and like there's this red line that is down the middle of the road, and like the bus can only go on that one red line. And so in product development, it's the concept of the red route, where it's like there's this one red line from like start to finish. You can't jump off into all these other things. And and so you'll say, well, what about some stuff like Expedia or, Airbnb, or like, where I can do all of these other cool things. And like, I can just spend my time surfing and figure out what I want to do. Yeah, that's great. But those companies are at scale. Like if you're developing a marketplace, like you got to focus on one use case that like an 8-year-old can understand, and like drive them down that one funnel and get like the traction around that one use case. And then you can focus on all the other kinds of stuff after you develop traction around that one use case. That's what worked for us. And that's something that we've had to learn the hard way ourselves. When you start introducing all of these different things and value propositions, then it's like you're not serving, like your value proposition is actually diluted and you're not compelling to anybody. So that's my advice. It's like, make the 3-second rule. It's like you have 3 seconds when somebody gets to your landing page, like, where am I? What can I do here? And why does it matter? And like the user needs to be able to understand that in 3 seconds. If not, as a bootstrap marketplace, it's going to be hard.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So I actually have a question for you, Bryan, which is, do you offer other kind of like additional services or some kind of like add-on kind of beyond that now?
We do. And so like 20-something% of our business is not lawn mowing. But as a new user, because GreenPal is not a household name, like we want it to be. We want it to be in the lexicon of the English language. Like, hey, hey, how are you gonna get here? I'm gonna Uber there. Hey, your grass is 4 feet tall. Let's get a GreenPal.
Yeah.
Like we want to be that, right? But we're not. And so not yet. And so even to this day, it's like as the onboarding process from like, what the hell is GreenPal? What can it do for me? Oh yeah, great. I get hooked up with a great lawn mowing service who comes out the same day or tomorrow in like less than 2 minutes. That's what it is. After that, the next piece of the user journey is, okay, great. How'd the lawn mowing go? Went good? All right, let's book them for every week or every 2 weeks for the rest of the lawn mowing season. That's the next piece. We're not worrying about anything else until we get you hooked up with a lawn mowing service that can run for the rest of the lawn mowing season every week or every 2 weeks. Then after that, hey, do you need your shrubs pruned? Do you need mulch? Do you need seed? Do you need fertilizer? We noticed you lived in the Northeast. There's a snow event coming. Do you want to hire them for snow removal? All of these offshoot, ancillary services that our platform can help you with, you can add after you get hooked up. But for us, like going deep and not wide is the strategy that's worked for us. Now you can go to Thumbtack, Yelp, Angie's List, Home Advisor, and you can get like a list of names and numbers for all of these things, at a touch of a button. There's already solutions for that, but you can't push a button and hire them to come mow tomorrow at a price that you know what it's going to be. And the only reason you can do that for lawn mowing on our platform is because we have focused with relentless intensity everything that we have as far as bandwidth into making it as easy as possible to push a button and get your lawn mowed. If we had fragmented all of that focus and the product positioning and the messaging around the 20 things that our platform could do on the front end, it's overwhelming and nobody would use it.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Thanks for explaining more on that. And then, so I'll just, I've got another kind of question off the back of that. So with, with that first transaction that you have through the platform and, they have a great experience. How do you, have you seen disintermediation as a problem maybe initially or?
Yeah, in the early days, it was a problem because the product sucked. It was hard to use. Our value proposition was weak for service providers. If any, like the first 50, 100 lawn mowing services that used the platform in Nashville all had my cell number. 7 days a week, you can call Bryan and talk to him about the platform, talk to him about a problem. Like there was a personal relationship with all of these guys and gals. And that was necessary in the early days because the product was such a piece of crap that it was very much like a benevolent, like act of benevolence for suppliers to use it. It's like, hey, I kind of like these guys. They're cool. I see what they're trying to do. They got me 10 customers this year. It's neat. Yeah, it's a piece of shit, but I'll keep using it. Like that was the dynamic for the first 2 years. And so that's how we circumvented disintermediation. Now, here we are 7 years later, hundreds of thousands of users. Disintermediation does not happen much because we add more value than we take out. So in the early days, like don't get too bent out of shape if you're getting disintermediated because it's going to happen because your value proposition and your products stink. But as time goes on and you're getting disintermediated a lot, it's an indicator to me that you're not adding enough value as a platform because it literally should almost take care of itself. Like, I mean, imagine riding an Uber and it's like, hey man, hey, for 50 cents cheaper, I can just pay you, I can dig out some cash and some coins And rather than the ride being like $7.50, it'll be $6.90. You cool with that? You cancel and I'll cancel. Like, nobody does that. And so it's like your product needs to like literally mimic that. Like, it's more of a pain in the ass for them to go offline than it is to like conduct a transaction inside your platform. Now, that said, I don't believe there will ever be an Uber for home painters. Like, the problem with finding a home painter is like finding them, and then it's done. Like, there's no problem with paying your home painter. Like, you can like cut them a check, Venmo them, all this stuff. They're in your house. So it's like there's never going to be an Uber for home painters. There just isn't. So like, you need to like be real with yourself and understand it's like, okay, am I in the right hunt here? Am I digging in the right trench? Whereas it makes sense for a marketplace to solve this problem end to end. Where am I adding value, and where am I not adding value? And I think I am. Like, disintermediation is not happening to you; it's happening for you, and you can use it to understand where your value proposition is coming short on the supply side and on the demand side.
That's great insights there. So I'm assuming in your guys' case that the value prop is the payments and some kind of like tools beyond to help manage the actual bookings.
Yeah, so we go like 100 feet deep for homeowners, and we go a mile deep for suppliers. Nice. So it's I don't know who said it. It's like come for the tools, stay for the network, or come for the network, stay for the tools. I don't know. Andreessen Horowitz, somebody from there said that, and it's a good insight. It's like you focus on tools for suppliers to run their entire livelihood on your platform for free. Like, these are free SaaS tools that they could use, and that delivers a more compelling value proposition for them. That's what gets them to stick around. That's what gets them to not want to like go around your platform to save the 8 or 10% or a couple bucks, right? And so in the early days, it's gonna be tough because you don't have all of these assets. Yeah. You don't have all of these things. You haven't spent the time discovering even what they are and then executing and building them, only to realize you spent 3 months building this one tool and nobody uses it, right? It's a very hard, like, iterative process. But after you go through that over and over again, you do develop something that is meaningful to your users, to where they don't want to go around it. Like it just makes more sense for them to stay on it. So disintermediation is something that you have to look at and let me repeat this. It's not happening to your startup. It's happening for your startup, because you can look at it to let it guide you. It's like, okay, all right, well, they're disintermediating us because we suck here, here, and here. Let's fix that, and then let's look at it again.
Yeah, that's great. Well, cool. So we're almost running out of time, but this was awesome. So is there maybe let's end it on some of the what are the biggest key learnings that are kind of unique to you and your experience bootstrapping GreenPal? That's quite the loaded question.
Key learnings. One of my favorite quotes, Mark Cuban: the less you can live on, the greater your options. So before you get started building a tech-driven marketplace, like, take an audit of, like, I was coaching a guy the other day. I do coaching for free in Nashville because I like it. And he was like, yeah, I'm making $250 now at my job now, but I'm working my ass off, and like, I just don't want to work this hard. Like, I want to do this thing. And like, if I can make $250 in the first year, I'd be happy with it. Maybe not have to work. Like, bro, you are so damn delusional. $250, like, you need to live on 40, like, because it's going to be 5 years before you're going to make $250 grand. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I see you, like, bro, I'm in this thing 7 years. Like, so that's my first, like, bit of advice, key learning. Like, you need to be able to, like, be in cockroach mode for a very long time, even if you're raising capital, to be honest, because every dollar you spend, you're not spending dollars, you're spending equity. Like, so you're as a personal, like, businessman, businesswoman, you got to live on, like, an insanely low amount of money. and like to make it in this game. So that's one thing. The next thing is like just a relentless, humbling focus on the user and the ability to talk to users 365, 7 days a week. Like the first several months and years of GreenPal was shitty product, intercom bubble at the lower right-hand corner. And so it's like people wanted to do X, Y, and Z. It wouldn't. They just hit us up on intercom, and me and my two co-founders and one of our teammates have intercom on our mobile phone, and like you just get popped. You'll be at dinner with your girlfriend. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I got to talk to this user in Denver, Colorado whose lawn guy didn't show up. Let's figure out what the hell's going on. Like that's literally like the first 3 years of starting this thing. But you know what? That was hard. But we have never been at a loss to understand where we need to focus our efforts on developing the product. We always know at like a ingrained, incarnate level, like this is where we think right now because we're always talking to users. So like the scrappy, like relentless, like focus on making the product better and better, and the ability to always have users to hit you up 365 is why we are where we are to this day. So that's a key learning. And those are the two main things. Like for anybody just getting started, like be scrappy, live on 30, 40 grand a year, and be willing to talk to your users 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Awesome. Well, man, this is a really great chat, and this is definitely one for anyone that's bootstrapping a marketplace they don't want to miss. So, where can we keep up with you, Bryan, before we leave?
Hey, anybody needs to reach me, hit me up on my email, brian@yourgreenpal.com. I respond to all emails. If you do email me, put me on third base. Like hit me up, say, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. We're here. Here's my specific problem. What do you think? And like, I don't know. I mean, I won't bullshit you. But if I can help you, I will. And so, yeah, email is the best way to get at me, man.
Perfect. Well, cool. Well, thanks again, Bryan. This was super insightful, and it was great to have you on and join us. So,
yeah, I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.